Did you know that corporate America raked in more than $940 billion since the credit crisis, and yet they're not on a hiring frenzy? Many say it's because of too many government regulations. Others say it's because of uncertainty in the economy. Others still say that it's because people have pretty much learned to do more with less, and shareholders they can't justify to their shareholders hiring new people when they have increased productivity and increased margins. And it's no exception here in California with an unemployment rate at 12.1%. But what about here in Silicon Valley? I'm really curious about what our panel thinks and what you're experiencing. Is Silicon Valley bucking the trend?
Yeah, I think definitely, especially with the reduced costs to do startups and also all the funding available.
There is a need to hire, and it's not so much are the positions available, it's what are the skills available in the workforce that can fill those positions. And so I would say that it's not so much a volume issue, but it's more of a skill challenge that we're faced with.
But I'm curious for a lot of the folks here in the audience who, and by the show of hands, we have very few that are looking for engineering jobs. What hope do they have in terms of finding a job right now at each one of your companies?
I've seen a lot of really great new positions come up in the past few years. One of them is community management, and sometimes that can mean anything from like glorified customer support or user relations to being a complete product evangelist and knowing everything about a company's API. Really fascinating role that's come up recently. So we're looking at that. We're starting to look for our first administrative support, recruiting. I think everyone here is hiring for recruiting as well. Product design, product development.
Certainly the more volume and the concentration would be on the technical side and the sales and marketing side.
So we're hiring in two areas. One is engineering, and there's one guy right there I'm going to talk to after. And then the other area is sales.
In terms of folks that do want to apply in a traditional way, cover letters, resumes.
In terms of resumes and cover letters, you'll eventually make a resume because what will happen is you will be interviewed, even if you're great person. It just makes everything fair to interview. So someone will need to share your resume so that a new interviewer can get a lot of information about it. So resumes aren't completely dead for that purpose, but you should never be having your resume for the purpose of submitting to a job site or anything like that.
So the interesting statistic is 70% of all jobs at a company is not posted, right? And another interesting statistic is that 70% of job searchers actually search online. The best way to find jobs, especially at a place like Tag, is knowing somebody else. And someone that can refer you into a job speaks huge volumes for our recruiting team. What's interesting is it's this very fundamental notion. You need the experience to get the job, and you need a job to get the experience, right? So how do you overcome that catch-22 of your career? And the only way you can get that is somehow get the permission to do the job. And there's very, very creative ways to do that.
We only have about 50 employees, but we do have a community manager. And one of the things that she did in the interview process that really stood out is that she created a website, whybranchoutshouldhireally.com. And then she did she had a Twitter following for this, and then she had a clout score, and all these things that she did in the interview process to make herself stand out from the rest. And I was super impressed with that.
Back at Google, someone made their resume into a Google search results page for their life. So things that you would actually find if you Googled them based on their experience. Then at Twitter, it would be a timeline telling all about their experience. And then at Foursquare, I'm also seeing a lot of people doing marketing on Facebook itself, saying, hire me Foursquare, hire me Twitter. It's really cool. Very, very memorable.
Yeah, we had this other guy who's a senior at University of the Pacific. And he put this awesome commercial together. I mean, high-quality commercial. And it's him using BranchOut to get a job at Salesforce, is the company that he chose, and how BranchOut helped him get that. And we liked it so much that we brought him in this week.
There was a company called Energy News Live back in 2001 that I really wanted to work for in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and move here from California, right? But it was an amazing company, incredibly progressive. And so I went there for the interview, and I stood out skill-wise, but I didn't have the experience in terms of energy. I'd never covered energy in my entire career. I mean, I didn't even know natural gas liquids from natural gas to oil to power. It was all a blur. But I ended up, when I got back from the interview, I stayed up for 48 hours straight and created an Excel spreadsheet of every single publicly traded energy company. And I matched them with all of the analysts, put all the analysts' contact information, and sent it off to the news director. And he called me up an hour later and he said, how can I not hire you? Either that or else I have to pay you a lot of money for that. Where I will draw the line is don't send a fishing pole with a line and your resume attached. That's a little overdone.
My admin, and I had never hired an admin, so she came in and interviewed because she's a friend of a friend of mine. And I brought her in, and she was great. She did it great in the interview, and then at the end I was like, okay, great, thank you. I'll get back to you tomorrow or whatever soon. And she's like, no, I start tomorrow. And I was like, whoa, what do you mean you start tomorrow? She's like, I'm going to work for free for the next 5 days. If I don't add enough value in your life, then don't hire me. And I said, okay, let's do it. So she started, and then 3 days later, I made her a full-time offer.
College grads tend to be the most creative out of all of them. One of them came up with a dance on why they should be working for Deloitte. And that person made it to the final round, but didn't quite make it. So at the end, I mean, substance does trump everything, but it does help you get into the door. But I do distinctly remember the dance. I won't do it now. But
I have my iPod.
I distinctly remember the dance.